Now, another thing that I'm commonly accused of when I talk about these kinds of ideas is, well, Leo, aren't you just stealing ideas from Buddhism and then pretending like you're saying something profound? But really, Leo, this is just Buddhism. The Buddha already said this. You're just copying him. You have to be careful here because not everything boils down to Buddhism. Buddhism is just one way to frame things. And Buddhism nor the Buddha had a monopoly on the truth. The Buddha was not the first awoken person in the world, nor the best, nor the most. Get this silly idea out of your mind. Before the Buddhists, there were Hindus, and before the Hindus, there were others. So, the Hindus also like to say that, oh, well, Leo, this is just all Hinduism. You're just copying Advaita or something. No, I'm not copying anybody per se. Of course, I do read and take ideas from different places. Sure, and there's a lot to be gained from Buddhism and from Hinduism and so forth. But don't get caught on these traditions. Long before there was Buddhism or Hinduism, mankind has known about this stuff. All cultures have basically derived this independently in one fashion or another for themselves. In South America, in North America, in Africa, they knew about this stuff. The Aboriginals in Australia, they know about this stuff because they've been using psychedelics for tens of thousands of years, and they've been doing spiritual practices, and they've been meditating, and they've been contemplating, and they've been doing darkroom retreats and going into caves and doing spiritual quests and vision quests and doing this and starving themselves and going through all sorts of ascetic practices, doing this stuff. This truth is not of human origin. See? So it's not that one tradition is copying another tradition. It's that we're all really kind of deriving it independently for ourselves. Anew, every generation derives it anew, and it has to be this way. It can't be a tradition. Truth can't be a tradition. Truth must be derived right now from the present moment. In the same way, when you're doing a mathematical proof, for example, when you're doing the Pythagorean theorem proof, and you're like reasoning through it, and you're trying to see like a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Why is that? Because there's you can kind of draw the little squares, and you can add them all up and see that they're the same. When you're doing that, every new generation of humans who does that, they have to reason through it for themselves. They can't just take Pythagoras' word. You can't just go into a book from 2,000 years ago, dig up some dusty Pythagorean book or read what Pythagoras wrote and just say, okay, I agree with Pythagoras. Pythagoras invented this. By the way, Pythagoras did not invent the Pythagorean theorem. It existed long before him. The ancient Egyptians and so forth, they knew about this stuff. The Babylonians and the Sumerians and so forth, they knew about all this stuff. The Pythagorean theorem. So, it's funny that even the Pythagorean theorem is not really the original work of Pythagoras. So don't get too clingy and attached to various kinds of traditions and so forth. It's just, the whole point of truth is that it's totally democratic. Anybody can access it at any time. And in fact, you must access it for yourself as though for the first time, as though you're the first human who's ever accessed it. That's the only way that you can access the deepest stuff that I talk about. Because it's right here, right now. It's not found in the words of humans. It's not found in books. Right here, right now is where you find it. That's how truth works. We're pulling from the same source, right? It's sort of like if you go to Egypt and you ask them, does the sun exist? They'll say yes. And if you go to Japan and you ask them, does the sun exist? They'll say yes. And if you go to Africa, they'll also say yes. Why is that? Is that because the Egyptians invented the sun? No, because the sun is universal to every creature living on this planet. And so they all recognize the sun because it's so obvious. So that's exactly how impermanence works. If you just observe reality for a little bit, even as a child, you realize, oh yeah, everything's changing all the time. Pretty obvious. Not rocket science here.